Welcome to the Reclaim Your Rise podcast. My name is Lauren Bongiorno, nationally board certified health coach and founder and CEO of Risely Health, where we help people and families impacted by type 1 diabetes take ownership over their lives so that they can transform with more freedom and confidence. Everyone has a different reason to be here. You might be seeking knowledge, support, or community, but at your core, I know that you long for something deeper. You're here for transformation. And that's what the Reclaim Your Rise podcast is all about.
The only way to impact that outcome is with your reaction. And your reaction is also two parts. It's not just the physical reaction of for diabetes, treating that blood sugar, using the tools in your toolkit to do that, but it's your mental reaction and the way you treat yourself and being kind to yourself and giving yourself grace.
A quick reminder before we start the show that nothing you hear on the Reclaim Your Rise podcast should be a substitute for personalized professional medical advice. Please always consult your physician or other medical professional before making any changes to your diet, insulin dosages, or healthcare plan. If you're someone who is currently feeling exhausted and terribly frustrated by your diabetes physically and emotionally, and you have a feeling that if you just had better support and a better tool set and roadmaps, that it could be incredibly transformational for your health and your entire life, I'm really excited to share that we are currently open for enrollment for our first Decide and Conquer group coaching cohort of 2024. If you don't know, the DCB is Risely's 12-week signature coaching program for women with type 1 diabetes who are feeling discouraged and isolated and overwhelmed and are craving more confidence and empowerment in their lives with their numbers and mindset and all of it. We've had over 400 women graduate from this program over the years, and they all were once where you're sitting literally right now on the sidelines, listening to me talk about the program or listening to stories of other people change their lives, wondering if that it's possible for themselves to do that too. It might be hard to believe, but this program is already filling up. So if today's episode inspires you to want to make a change for your T1D, don't wait to apply. After you do, wait to receive an email within 48 hours to book a call with Abby or Alyssa from the Risely team. And I hope to see you in the program. And who knows, maybe even one day have you as a podcast guest inspiring others with your transformation. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Reclaim Your Rise. Thank you for tuning into another episode this week. I'm so excited for you to hear from today's guest, Tricia Culligan, who is simply just a bundle of energy and enthusiasm. That's the best way to describe her, and someone that I've been really wanting to invite on the show since she came through Risely's Decide and Conquer group coaching program earlier this year. Tricia lives in New York City with her husband, Dan, and after getting diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 8, spent the next 24-ish years feeling quite confident in her management, but then something happened last year that caused her to absolutely spiral with a ton of anxiety around her blood sugars, and she had to figure out a way to get back to herself and manage her diabetes in a sustainable way. So we talk a lot about overcoming that experience. We touch on what it was like also growing up with a father who was a doctor and a brother who also was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Tricia shares really tactical mindset strategies that completely shifted the way that she lives with type 1 diabetes, and also shares a really touching story about a specific incident that happened in high school drama class that has been really healing for her to talk about as an adult. There's so much more that we get into, and I feel like this is one of those episodes that you're going to find some area of her story and struggles that you can connect with. Also, PSA, we are in our final weeks of enrolling people into the January cohort of the Decide and Conquer group coaching program, otherwise known as the DCB, which is the program Tricia came through. So if you're a woman with T1D who is struggling to feel more energized and have more freedom and confidence in her life with diabetes, both in numbers and mindset, the link is in the show notes to apply, and do that ASAP because the program starts soon and we are likely going to fill it up before the holidays. Okay, without further ado, help me welcome today's wonderful guest, Tricia Culligan, to the show, and let's rise. Tricia Culligan, welcome to Reclaim Your Rise. Thank you for being here with me today.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here.
This is a long time coming. I feel like we keep graduating our relationship from you were in the DCB, then it was like you came to alumni meetups, and now it's like the podcast, and we're also seeing each other, I think, next week or the week after for a holiday New York City meetup. So we're just around each other all the time now. I love it.
I can't wait.
Yay. Okay. Well, we have so much to get into, but I would love if you can start off with sharing a story of a time that you reclaimed your rise.
Yeah. So for me, I think this was a moment about a week or two ago when I was
Mm.
going to the gym to my cardio dance class that I love. It's a 55-minute, there's a live DJ, it's so much fun. And I was grabbing my juice box to bring in with me to the gym. And I realized the straw from the juice box had fallen off because I had carried the exact same juice box in and out of my workout classes for 2 to 3 months now without having to use it. And that was crazy. If someone told me that it was possible to not go low during this class, and people had told me this, I would just laugh at you and say, you don't understand what my life is like. And it wasn't even something I was actively frustrated about because I just accepted that this is part of my life with diabetes without actually stopping to ever track or realize that this is something that I don't have to live like this. I just assumed that every time I go to this workout class, I'm going to go low. And every time I'm done, I'm going to go high after. And it was through everything at the DCB that I learned all these exercise strategies that I could try and also finding the strategy that worked for me. There were a lot of different, like, you could try, if you're going low, you could try in the morning workout, when you have your cortisol, your adrenaline. And I'm not a morning girl. So that didn't work for me. And I'd heard that in the past. And I was like, that's not me. I'm not going to wake up at 7 and work out. And that was something really cool that I learned. You can find the strategy that works best for you. And I tried a few things out. I found two strategies I use every time I go to this class now. And then when I'm done, I give insulin, even though I end the class at 95, 105. And it was so intimidating to do. That's terrifying. You're right. I finished a workout. I haven't eaten anything. I'm going to give insulin, but I know now that's my body's pattern. That's what happens to me. And I stay pretty much in range during the class and after the class, which is something we don't always think about after the workout, too. You need to keep tracking and keeping on top of that. So, yeah, that was my moment.
I love that, and I had no idea that the conversation was going to we were gonna be talking a little bit about exercise here, but it's such a natural segue because I think that for a lot of people, one of their main pain points is exercise. I was actually just DMing with somebody on Instagram earlier who was saying, like, it doesn't matter, like, what exercise they're doing, like, they're just constantly dropping and spiking, and his idea or of what he needed was just kind of like, tell me what I need to do and just to fix this one problem. And it's always so hard to convey, I guess, and to kind of get across the message that it's like, if you're having an isolated problem, like the problem isn't, or the solution isn't just like addressing that, it's generally more like a wider gap in understanding that you're missing over like your overall body's patterns or your confidence and ability to change your insulin doses or change strategies. So would you say that that was kind of the case for you? I'm curious.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I just looking like zooming out and looking at the before the workout and after the workout, and not just the workout. So what happened to me during the workout? I like one of the strategies I do is going on activity mode for Omnipod 5 2 hours before the workout. So planning that far in advance for it. And the other one is I kind of combined using a food that makes me spike. I almost embarrassed to say this, but I love white bread and I know it's not the most healthy, but I'm like, I love white bread and I love grilled cheese. So my like white bread grilled cheese that always makes me spike, I can combine that with the workout and eat that like 45 minutes before the workout, give half the bowls I usually give and go into the workout, stay flat, and then give the rest later. So it was kind of about like looking before the workout to get the results during the workout. And then also thinking after the workout. There's like so much that goes into just a workout that other people do not understand.
Of course. And by the way, too, let's not shame white bread. Like, let's
That's
just give it the
true.
space and time. Let's just be like, hey, like I'm actually able to stay in range by having something that like I enjoy. And just not to make this so much about food, but I was recently reading this study that was talking about how literally they gave one group of people this drink and the second group of people the same exact drink, but they told one group that it was like unhealthy that what they were drinking and that it had like higher calories or something. And then they told the other group that it was like a healthy protein drink that had like low calories. And they tested, I think they drank it for X amount of days and then tested, I think, their like weight afterwards. And group two, where they thought it was healthier, actually lost weight. So it was basically talking about like how much of a psychological connection there is in terms of like what our body thinks we're consuming. So like if you want to eat the grilled cheese and white bread, like embrace it. It's good for you in the sense that it's helping you with your workout.
Definitely. And I think that's also a point you brought up a lot, that like not good and bad foods, but challenging and easy foods. So this was kind of like combining a challenging food with using exercise as a tool to work together with the two of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely, right, and it really comes down to, like, if I go and have grilled cheese before my workout, like, that may not work, but it's that's what works for you. So, let's
Yes.
back it up a little bit because we can talk about your patterns and what has worked, and I want you to give some tools and tips and things that have really helped you reclaim your diabetes. You grew up with a brother that has your brother also has type 1 diabetes, and your dad is a doctor. So, what was that like getting diagnosed in that type of environment, and I guess how you related to your diabetes, the majority of the years that you had it before recent.
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky in that sense that I was diagnosed when I was 8, and I don't remember any of the kind of fear or anxiety around my diagnosis because my parents shielded me from all of that. And they really, from the get go, were very much like, diabetes is not going to stop you. You're going to live your life. You can do anything you want to. And that was great. But I do remember, my dad, again, he's a neurologist. And when I first got diagnosed, I didn't even get admitted to the hospital because they were like, "Oh, like you're all set." Everyone knew my dad. They're like, "Okay, here you go. Here's the insulin, the syringes." And my dad was like, "Wait, type 1 diabetes is such a niche, like it's such a specific skill set and disease that he was like, I don't know how to do this." He's like, "I don't know, from what I learned in medical school is not going to help me with how to, this is not." We didn't, so we actually drove to one of his friends' houses to help us give my first dose of insulin, who was also a doctor, to figure that out. But it's such a like, and he has given me such perspective on, both of my parents have always said this growing up, that nobody gets it. Like, not nobody, but people outside the community really have all these preconceptions about diabetes, and they don't understand what the day to day is like. And they don't understand kind of what it takes, so much thought process of every day, what you're thinking about. So that was just, it was very great having that kind of support where they got it. And I think people that live, families that live with it, siblings that live with it, roommates, partners, they eventually get it. But it was really interesting that even my dad being a doctor, he was like, wow, people really don't understand. Other doctors don't understand. When you go see another
Mhm.
doctor, they don't necessarily get what you're going through or know that one blood sugar is not the overarching picture of your health.
Right, and I'm sure, like, your parents' friends when you were diagnosed or family members, it kind of was almost like, "Oh, what a relief, like, at least, you're a doctor and, you're gonna know how to take care of her," and it's like, it's so not like that, right? It's this whole
No.
different beast and ball game. So, when did your brother get diagnosed?
So he got it when he was 6. He's 5 years younger than me. So let me think, like 5 years after me, 6 years after me. And he, well, not lucky, but my mom kind of knew, like she knew the signs early. So he got diagnosed much earlier than me. And with him, they're like, he is getting admitted to the hospital. We are like doing it this way. But so yeah, he's 5 years younger than me, and he got it shortly after, like 5 years after.
So you're growing up, the 2 of you together, you have type 1 diabetes, you have a father who's connected to the medical field, and you're all probably doing your best just in the way that every other family who has a child that's diagnosed is doing at that time. What was the, I guess, approach? Was the approach to get you connected with other type 1s? Was it heavy on we're going to eat a certain way, or was it we're just gonna eat whatever we want, but we're going to give insulin for it? How was the that all those aspects and how you handled it?
Definitely the last one. It was very much, we're going to eat what you want. I was lucky enough that when I got diagnosed, the insulin pumps were out already. So I was on an insulin pump pretty quickly. And so was my younger brother. And it was very much like my mom would shout out like 15 minutes before dinner. She's like, test and give insulin. And we'd be like, okay. And it was, I think, I have 3 brothers, there's 4 of us. So half of us had diabetes growing up. And I think that just really helped to also normalize it, where I didn't feel this like other sense. And I had a buddy all the time to talk about it with, or be like, oh, I'm low, I'm high. And we would like test together and guess our blood sugars and like make it a
Oh.
game. And that was just really helpful. And also, my parents' approach was just very much like, you can do anything your other brothers can do. Like, we'll make it work, we'll figure it out. And this is not going to hold you back. And you'll eat whatever you want and give insulin, and we'll figure it out.
And so at what point did that strategy not work for you anymore?
Yeah, I mean, it honestly worked for me for 24 years. It was really like, if even my friends that have seen this kind of journey I've went through in the last 6 months were like, oh, like honestly, people didn't know I had diabetes because, and not in a way that I hid it, just that like it's so just part of my natural life that I didn't think about it. I wasn't stressed about it. I wasn't worried about it. And it's funny, I made a lot of connections in DCB with people with anxiety about diabetes. And they were like, how long has this been like this? And I was like, this is brand new to me. I was not anxious about this. I wasn't worried about it. I kind of was very go with the flow with it. And then this spring, my husband and I got married last year. And then I met my nephew last Christmas and was like, oh my God, he's so cute. Okay. Maybe I'm in. Maybe I would want one. So we started thinking about the possibility of starting a family. And what I heard from medical professionals and read was just that your A1C needs to be in the fives and you can't go over 140. And there were just these very strict, regimented, numbers based outlook, nothing about like your mental health or like how you're feeling. It was just all based on numbers. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. Diabetes won't stop me. And then I had kind of like the worst 2 months this spring where I was obsessed with my blood sugar. I was consumed by it. I was tracking it. I got an Apple Watch just to look at my blood sugar more often, to look at my Dexcom. And I like went to my parents and was like, I don't know what to do. This is the first time that I'm diabetes is it's stopping me and I'm trying to do something. And I think I can't do it. And I was like, I need help. I don't know what to do. And that's kind of where I started looking online. And that's how we found the Risley group and program.
Wow, I didn't know it was that what set you off to kind of spiral was this pressure that you felt of that's a crazy almost feels unattainable in a way, number to
Yeah.
stay under 140 and just be able to live how you've been living for the past, at that point, 24 years, which is, I'm just gonna live my life and I'm gonna, have decent numbers. And you did. That's the thing. Like you didn't have a 7, 8 A1C. Like you were pretty quote unquote by all standards well controlled. It was just pregnancy takes this extra level that is just requires really, really tight management.
Yeah, it was I kept saying it was like going from 0 to 100 where like my stress level and the amount I thought about diabetes went from 0 like it just like and again my A1C was in the low sixes but like when I joined like right before I was good and like I wasn't going high a lot I wasn't going to the hospital like I was good. It was just this overwhelming pressure and the stakes were raised so high, right? They're like if you do this you could damage your future baby. And this is really dark, but I realized later after doing all these exercises that like I would kind of picture my nephew like being hurt or like me hurting him every time I went over 140. And it was like so stressful and overwhelming. And just like I felt so lost and I didn't know what to do.
So, did you at that point, like, I think the next step, like, for a lot of people is let me connect with other people who have had healthy pregnancies and who have
Mhm.
done it to see how they can do it. So, did you read books or what was your, I need to get more, I need to see how this is actually possible for me? Like, what was that path for you?
Yeah, so I did a lot of research and it pretty much was saying a lot of the same thing. Like, don't go over this number, get your blood sugar down, don't eat carbs, like very, very restrictive. And so I tried that. And I did before, I don't even know if I told you this, before I started DCB, my A1C was a 5.9. And I had one of those moments where I was at the doctor and it was like, everyone's like, yay, great, now you're all set. And I was like, I just like went to my car and cried. And I was like, I don't feel good. Like, I don't want to live like this. I feel like I am consumed by this. And I think we did a visualization exercise at some point, like, how do you picture your diabetes? And I remember thinking it was one of those like Looney Tunes, like giant weights that comes down on Roadrunner. And like, it was like weighing me down so much. And I just like wasn't happy. And I kind of got there with like my A1C being there and keeping my numbers down, but I was low all the time. And I just was not happy. I was really not happy.
Mm. I'm glad you brought up the visualization exercise. That is something that we started bringing into coaching about a year ago. And I didn't realize how powerful that exercise would be and how different everybody's responses would be. The first time I did that exercise with myself, and for everybody listening, essentially, and you can do this, after you listen to this episode, like just sit with yourself for a few minutes, like focus on your breath, breathe in, breathe out to get yourself grounded, and then just like visualize your like diabetes, like in your body. And if you
Mhm.
were like to almost like if it was a physical thing and you can like capture it and you could hold on to it, what would it look like? So for you, that whole you related to it as like this weight that was like stomping you down. For me, when I did that exercise, I couldn't find it in my body. Like I was getting emotional over the fact where it's like I can't picture it because I almost felt like it was it was me. Like I couldn't differentiate between like me and my diabetes because it felt so intertwined. So it was a weird just journey of like doing that myself. And I was like, I'm curious to see how, what other people will, how other people will understand it when they're guided through this meditation. So for you, it felt like this weight, it wasn't sustainable. And I think what people forget too is like, you, we know what to do to have a healthy pregnancy. Like the easy thing and the obvious thing is like, okay, like you said, don't eat the carbs and don't do this and don't do that and like hyper focus on your CGM. But like, is that something that's sustainable? And how are you setting yourself up for as soon as the baby's born on the other side? Like, you're not going to want to sustain that. And you're probably going to bounce and kind of rebel and just be like, give me all the food. Like, and then you're doing it for your child and you're not just doing it for yourself.
Exactly. Yep. I think that's exactly it.
So when you came into the DCB and the Decide and Conquer boot camp, like what was your experience in terms of what were you drawn to and what ultimately were your goals in the program?
Yeah. So I came in with a very, like, if you look back and read my goals, you'd be like, oh my God, these are so specific. It's like,
Yep.
it was purely about eliminating high blood sugars. And it's interesting because a lot of people have, the opposite where they are scared of lows. They didn't want to go low. And I was like, I'm good with lows. I do not want to go high. And specifically to me, I like high is over 140. And I was like, this is my only goal. And, we were talking before, I was like, oh, there's a community, take it or leave it, not important to me. And like, you're like mental health and mindset. I'm like, no, I'm good with that. I was not good with that, but I was like, no, it's just like, I need the knowledge. And like, right from the get go, I was like, tell me the knowledge. I just need the knowledge. I don't need the rest of this. I just like want the information. And I do want to say I did get that. Not like right from the first course. I think after the intro, the first course was like, why are you going high? And I was like, yes, this is it. Perfect. And that was so helpful. And the things I learned in that course were so helpful. But what I realized later on was like, that was just one small aspect of it, was that part. And there was so much more that I had to kind of unpack and unlock to get to a place where I am now, where I'm like happier and more at peace. And I feel confident with where I am now and with my future.
So mindset is such a abstract, like elusive, like it's hard to connect to what that actually means. So is there any way you can break it down even more like tactically into like what aspects of mindset did you learn that you were struggling with that you didn't realize beforehand that you needed support on?
Yeah, so I think one of the things we did was we did a thought train exercise where I just was not aware of how much my thoughts could impact my actions and how I was living my life. And we kind of did, it was like thought into feeling into action. And I think you started it with something like, the story you're telling yourself is this. So I was like, the story I'm telling myself is, if I go over 140, I will harm a future baby and like I'm a terrible person. And the feeling was like anxious and stressed and consumed and like really just unhappy, which for me, I am like, I have never felt this way with diabetes, where I felt so unhappy and like that. And then my action was, I'm obsessed. Like when I'm at 130, I'm correcting it, then I'm going low. And I was consumed by it. And then we did this kind of reframing into, like, we went through your thought patterns. You're like, the story I'm telling myself, like you were trained, the way you've been thinking, you have to work the same way you work with getting your physical patterns and like tracking your patterns and making changes. You have to do that mentally too, which I had
Mhm.
no idea about this. So we had to reframe that thought triangle. And one of the other ones we did was the event plus reaction is outcome. And that's one I've also carried into my normal life that I use all the time. Like, you cannot control all the events. Like, your plane gets delayed, you spill something. You can't, the only way to impact that outcome is with your reaction. And your reaction is also two parts. It's not just the physical reaction of like, for diabetes, treating that blood sugar, using the tools in your toolkit to do that, but it's your mental reaction and the
Mhm.
way you treat yourself and being kind to yourself and giving yourself grace and saying, okay, this isn't what I expected, but I know what to do to fix the blood sugar, or to bring it up or down, not fix it, to move it in the right direction. And also, I'm like giving myself a break. I'm doing the best I can. I'm making progress and I'm at peace with the progress I'm making over trying to be perfect and have that perfect blood sugar.
Hmm. Those are the most tactile. I was like, I didn't even expect you to go that deep. That's helpful for people to hear that there are tools that you can put with mindset to create those types of outcomes.
Yeah.
I think generally we as humans, we think that in order to reach a goal that feels really far away or distant, that it needs to be hard. And from day one, we set in our heads like, this is going to be the hardest thing I ever do. And this is going to be so challenging. And this is going to be, like I'm going to have to give up so much of my freedom for, whether it's prepping for pregnancy or, lowering the A1C or whatever it is. And in actuality, like that itself is a story that you're telling yourself a story. And when we tell ourselves stories, they're more likely to happen because our body looks for evidence in our minds of for guidance, right? And so if you're telling yourself it's going to be hard, it is going to be hard.
Hmm.
And for you, like yes, you had a 5.9 A1C before you came into coaching, but your time in range was also, I looked it up, it was 68%.
Yeah.
And so that is a testament to like when you are trying super hard, like, and you're super focused and fixated on it, that doesn't necessarily equate to more control. Oftentimes, what happens is you become really reactive and kind of like make decisions based off of fear instead of making decisions based off of intentionality and really thinking through what your body needs in that moment. So, for you, would you equate kind of this getting to a place where you're a lot happier with better time and range and all of that with almost like taking the easier route, or would you still say it was hard in some ways?
I think it was, I made a lot of progress physically in the beginning and I did see that progress, but I still wasn't there mentally. And I think letting go was a big thing for me, letting go of the control. And that's kind of where like there are events I can't control and letting go of some of that control and kind of giving myself like, I'm doing the best I can and I can be flexible. And I talked to Jihan a lot about this, Coach Jihan, shout out to her. She was amazing. And she gave this palm tree analogy that I think was from a children's book she gave to her daughter, but it was about just being flexible and not being rigid. And I realized I was just so rigid on like focused on these numbers and not on how I was feeling and my mental health, and letting go of that control and getting this ease. I saw then the results go way up physically once I was able to kind of relax a little bit, not panic when I went over 140, be like, okay, let me see where this is going. Let me not immediately correct. Let me like kind of give myself that like peace and grace. And also just, yeah, I think you're just letting go of that control and need for perfection was huge, getting physical results also.
I also think it's a lot harder to do that on your own. I used to be like a very like solo person, and I've seen so many people just be like, I'm just, this is my journey and I'm going to keep pushing through and this is my challenge and I'm not going to talk to anybody about it and nobody in my family's going to know or my friends, but like when you start talking about it and when you surround yourself with other people who are also going through the same challenge, it almost gives you permission, I would think, to like not only fail, which is how we learn, but to see other examples of other people doing it and kind of like pushing you along the way. So is that how you felt like community helped you, or in what other ways?
No, definitely. That was also having the group to turn to when I was like frustrated with something. And it was a journey for me to let go. You can't just one day wake up and change how you're thinking and how you're acting. And having that, we had a Slack group that we chatted in, and just having the group that I could reach out to and say, like, I'm having a really tough day. I'm going high. I know, like, I want to give insulin. I'm trying to wait. And I would even side text with some people. There was one person in DCB, Nadine, who is much older than me, different phase of life than me. And we both bonded though over having this anxiety with diabetes. And she actually formed a whole anxiety group in Slack where we would chat with each other and be like, okay, I'm 150. I know I've given insulin. I should not give more insulin. I'm going to wait. I need some support. And they'd be like, you can do it. Wait it out. Like, don't look at your Dexcom for half an hour. So having that community of also people looking for the transformation and to make a change, maybe not the exact same change as you, maybe a different type of change, but just everyone in the same phase where they're trying to change something about their life with diabetes and improve. And also just people getting it, and women getting it and not having to explain it. It's just going to be really exhausting to explain to other people what you're going through, and you don't have to explain that to people in this group.
No, absolutely. We all truly get it. It's not every day that we're surrounded by that many women just being able to freely, talk about and express how we're feeling and know that they don't, know that they truly get it. So, I know did you have experience with community prior to DCB?
I did. So I had gone to diabetes camp when I was growing up. I went about 4 or 5 years up in Massachusetts for girls with diabetes. So I'd had that community group there, but that was when I was younger. And a lot has happened since then. So having this kind of like adult phase where I'm talking to adults, and also, there's another group that one of the women, Brianna, formed about women who had type 1 diabetes in high school. And I was like, okay, I'll join. I'm being more open to community, even though I didn't think I needed it. I'm realizing I really did need this. Let me just see what happens in this group. And I wound up like writing this journal entry that I shared with them. And we all kind of shared stories from high school. I was like sitting on my couch crying, having like this moment of all these experiences that happened that I don't think I've like shared some of these stories with other people, like close friends or even my husband. I hadn't even told him about the story. And we shared it in this group, and it was just such a like wonderful safe space of other, like there were so many specific, like doing type 1 diabetes in high school as a female is such a unique experience that even my brother as a boy, it's different. Like it's different being a girl going through high school and going through high school with diabetes. That's such a pivotal moment in your life.
Would you be comfortable sharing like a little bit about what your experience was like in high school as a female type 1?
Yeah. So it was, again, like overarchingly amazing. I had the support from my parents and my brother. I had great friends, but I was really into acting. And my sophomore year, the play they chose, I went to an all girls high school. So there's not a lot of plays that are just women. And the play they chose was Steel Magnolia.
Mm.
And I was, I had never seen the movie. And my mom was like, do you want me to talk to the principal? Do you want me to talk to someone? I was like, no, I don't want to make a big deal. It's fine. I watched the movie with my mom, and this was what came up in the group. We all kind of talked about watching that movie, and it was a very upsetting movie. And I remember the moment I saw like her have a seizure, and it's a very upsetting
Mhm.
movie to watch. And then to think about people acting out my life with type 1 diabetes, but also very outdatedly from the 1970s or whenever it was based. And I went to the student director and I mentioned to her, like, I just want to let you know I have type 1 diabetes. So, like, it's a little bit uncomfortable for me. So, I was wondering if, like, we would think about doing a different play. And she was like, oh, you have type 1. You'd be great. You could try out for the lead then because you get it. And I was like, no,
Oh.
I don't want to act out having a seizure when that could happen to me in real life.
Mm.
And I realized then after that incident, I wound up not doing the play. And I found out that some of the girls in the drama club thought I was very dramatic for asking to change the play and for raising my concern about that. And I realized through talking with this group and sharing that, I was like, I think I kind of carried that with me, that sharing my diabetes is dramatic, and that me taking up space or saying what I need from diabetes or sharing this is a dramatic thing to do. So don't share it as much. And I hadn't thought about this incident from high school in years. And I was like, oh my God, I think that's linked. That's crazy.
Not me sitting on the other end of this right now, like, literally, like, tearing up, and, like, I don't even know why. It's just, like, it's so true. You're at that young age, like, formative age in, like, middle school and in high school, like, you in an instant, like, can be some responded to in some way or another, or somebody can say something and like that sticks with you for years and years and years. And it's like that's not even yours to carry. Like that's somebody else's problem that they had with you. That has nothing to do with yourself.
Right. And I mean, given the girls were also like 15 and 16, so not that I like carry blame for them or anything, but it's also just something that it wasn't like this was a moment for me that I hadn't even connected this. I hadn't thought about this in years. And it was only when one of the other women brought up watching Steel Magnolias in high school and like how her friends reacted. I was like, oh, I had a Steel Magnolias incident. And I was like writing about it. I was like, huh, oh my God, that's wow. And I was like, I wonder if that's why I haven't shared as much with people. I don't think it's in a way that, again, like I said earlier, I'm hiding it. But I wonder if like one of the reasons I hadn't shared with so many people was because I was, when I was 15, someone told me I'm dramatic for sharing I had diabetes. I don't even know if I told my parents about this or any, it wasn't like it just was something that happened and I moved on from it. But because I was so young and also the message I received was like, that's dramatic. Taking up space for diabetes is dramatic and like deal with it kind of on your own.
Right. Like you carried that shame and that just
Yeah.
you to your point, kind of how you said earlier, like even just earlier, we can like play it back, right? You were like, in 24 years, like diabetes wasn't really a challenge for me. Like I just kind of moved through it and like it was my own thing and yada, yada, yada. But it's like when you stop to actually slow down and pull apart like the just layers and layers and layers, like there is stuff there. Like we grew up with like chronic conditions, whatever, whatever you want to call it, an autoimmune disease, a chronic condition. Like we did. It impacted our life in a big way, especially when you're a child and diagnosed. And so there is going to be stuff there. And if you don't acknowledge it, it is going to show up in a different way that is probably not like an advantage for you in terms of like you being your truly authentic self or like showing up in relationships or career, like feeling fully seen or fully heard. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure. And it's been since then, I've realized also, I think I haven't shared diabetes a lot with a lot of people in my community because I have my micro community of my parents and my brother, and I'm so lucky to have that. But I've also, since kind of talking through that and going through this course, I was like, I live in New York City. I am like 33 years old. I have really great friends. Like most of my friends I've had for 10 years. Like I can share more of this with them and I can not, I think I used to think of it as like putting it on someone else. Like it's not putting it on them. It's like honoring our friendship and relationship to trust them with this. And these are not the 15-year-old girls I went to high school with. These are my real friends. And I'm almost doing our relationship a disservice by not being honest and saying, I'm running late for brunch and not just saying, sorry, I'm running late. Like I've started being like screenshotting my blood sugar and being like, I am 45. I need time. And it's like a way healthier relationship now where I can share that. And they're like, oh my God, of course. Like take your time, you don't need to make up an excuse or just be running late.
That's probably an added benefit that you didn't think that you needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, I don't need help with my relationships. I'm good. Like I'm all set. And I was like, wow, it's really nice to kind of open up. And I've had conversations with friends before that also they were like, we just figured you were just really good at diabetes because you never talked about it. So you were good at it. And I was like,
Mm.
no, there's also no being good or bad at it. Like it's just a daily, and I think a lot of my friends, not my best friends, but a lot of people in my group didn't realize the like amount of decision making or the amount of thought that goes into every single thing you do with type 1, and just kind of being open and sharing that has been so helpful.
Absolutely. And I think we sometimes perpetuate the misunderstanding that people have about diabetes because don't want to be open about it. And so that
Yeah.
helps people understand. So I love that. My last question for you, Trisha, is your dad and your mom came on the graduation call for the DCB program when it ended, and they were so sweet. And your dad spoke, and he was just like beaming with so much pride and as you know your mom was as well, but I'm curious like what changes either they have seen in you or what things that your brother has learned. I really am of the belief that like when we work on our diabetes, right, it's a ripple effect and like other people can see it and their lives are better because we're showing up better. So I'm curious what behind the scenes they had shared with you.
Yeah, I think, my mom has told me since, I talk to her all the time on the phone. I think from almost the first or second course, she was like, I can hear it in your voice. You're just lighter. It was how, like, she's like, you're lighter. You're like happier. And you're like, I'm returning in a way to how I was before this whole pre pregnancy thought process started, but with so much more. I have so much more knowledge now. I have so much more, I'm more open about it. I've seen differences like mentally also. Like I've said before, it's trickled in some of those thought processes we worked on into my real life. Like that even though I can still things like that. Like my dad was like, I
Mhm.
use that for my golf game now. That's amazing.
Oh my gosh. DCB.
Yeah, he's like, I love that one.
I love that. It's like we'll start advertising, like, "Can help you with your diabetes or your golf game."
So it's great. And I feel like I feel like
Oh,
myself again, but better because I now have so much, I fixed the one thing I wanted, I got plus 10 million other things. So they are both just so happy also and thrilled with just how everything turned out.
So what is the next phase? Like, is this something where you feel ready to enter into like a pregnancy phase soon?
Yeah, so actually after doing DCB and going through all that, I was like, I think now that I've like refound my happiness and this kind of peace and ease, I'm like, I want to keep living my life right now. I want to like enjoy where I'm at with my husband, living in the city, having some freedom and just kind of being happy and going with the flow and not being stressed. So maybe in the future next year, I feel like confident that if and when I decide I want to, I can. But right now I'm like, I just want to be like happy again and like live my life and go back to like that ease I had before, but now with all that knowledge and empowerment to just, yeah, be happy with where I am right now.
And do it for you. I love that. Well, I so appreciate, your vulnerability and your just like all the stories and willingness to share. You are such a bright light. You're somebody who, when you walk in a room, it's just like you just want to give you a hug, and you're like, Trisha's here. So I'm grateful that you're in this community and that we've had the opportunity to meet through diabetes. And just appreciate you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to see you and the other New Yorkers in a few weeks.
Counting down the days. See you later, Trisha. Bye. Thank you so much for being here with me today and listening to this episode of Reclaim Your Rise. To let us know that the episodes we're putting out are impactful and to help us get our street cred up and let everyone else know that this is something worthy of their time to listen to, please leave a rating and review on our Apple Podcast, send the show to other people impacted by T1D or maybe even your doctor, and share it on social media tagging at Risley Health and at Lauren_Bongiorno. New episodes of Reclaim Your Rise come out every single Tuesday, so make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so that you never miss a beat. Thanks again for listening, and as always, remember, diabetes is a challenge that we did not choose, but one that we can rise above.